All right, let me give you a brief overview of the optimization. So
Okay, I understand now.
So it's better that you have an understanding of what our capability was before we introduced the optimization. But one of the biggest asks that we receive from customers were, look, if I'm evaluating 200 projects, it's very hard for me to start and jump directly into the refinement of the portfolio, which is sequencing projects and manually going through the backlog and bringing in projects or removing projects from the roadmap. And I need a starting point. I need something that's gonna give me a starting point based on whatever I'm trying to maximize with my portfolio, and then allow me to manually adjust it further. So for that, we introduced the optimization page. The optimization page starts off, and let me refresh so I can start fresh. It starts off in the baseline scenario, just like we discussed before. It starts off with a list of all the projects that are in the roadmap with an optimization status which is included. So we assume that all the projects that you configured to be in the roadmap are in flight, so they're obviously included in the portfolio. We also added two intrinsically calculated scores called value and yield. And value is a score between 0 and 100 that helps with prioritization. Now, what defines this value, it's up to you. You can configure, as part of the plan, up to 5 value drivers. And these value drivers can be custom fields of type number and currency. They can be scores from the UMT360 surveys, or they can be the actual financial values from the EFT selected in the cost budget and the benefits. So let's say I have either custom fields or UMT360 questionnaires for risk, business value, and I'm also tracking plan benefits. For each one of these value drivers.
Sorry, Vlad, just a short comment. So far, it looks quite similar to standard functionality of project server portfolio management.
Yes, it's very similar.
Optimization.
It is very similar. It's very similar. The only difference is they usually just rely on the strategic impact questionnaire to define the priority of projects. And they also do relative priority, which means if I include 20 projects, I'm going to get percentages that add up to 100, right? If I decide to add a new project into that mix, all the priorities are going to shift so that they're relatively to each other, they add up to 100%. We chose not to go that way because we want these value scores to be absolute numbers. So when I compare this first one, single hung window assembly line with a value of 87 out of 100 with a backlog project that might have a value of 65, I know what it is regardless how many projects I have included, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. The second one is we allow you to change the prioritization criteria so that you can save different scenarios. So for example, I want to create a scenario where I want to maximize the value score of my portfolio. And the value score of my portfolio is the portfolio value score, which is the average of all the value scores for the projects that are included. So that means what I do is I prioritize and I sort by value. I recalculate, and you have an option to either only run the optimization on your in-flight projects, or the optimization algorithm can automatically go through the backlog and automatically add projects that might have a higher value than your in-flight ones. So if you look here, after I recalculated, I'm starting to have projects that are included from the backlog, right? And projects that were in the roadmap, which were excluded. Now, what
are our constraint in this scenario? It's budget.
Exactly. It's the budget cutoff, which is kept in sync with the cutoff that you set up here. So if I take this all the way down and I move here, you see the budget cutoff changed.
Can you input as a criteria don't budget?
No, it's currently the only constraint that we provide is budget. Mm-hmm. So it looks at the total cost here and the budget cutoff. Mm-hmm. Now, this is one scenario. I'm optimizing my portfolio to maximize the value. Mm-hmm. Then we provide yield. If I have projects like health assessment and innovation management that are very close from a value standpoint, 84, but their total cost differs, that allows me to calculate a yield that differentiates between them. And so the yield is a cost-adjusted value, essentially. Now, if I am to prioritize on yield, the projects that are going to be included are going to be very different. Right?
Yield, in your terminology, is benefits, or you can be defined as you wish?
No. So yield is cost-adjusted value. So if two projects have the same value score, but one costs $10 million and the other costs $1 million, the yield for the $1 million project is much higher than the yield from the $10 million project.
Okay, so it's not direct actual benefits reflected in dollar. It's more like relative.
Yeah, but benefits are going to be accounted for in the value score, Andre. So remember, I have the ability to say value for each customer is something different. So in this demo, I'm saying the risk score, the benefits, and the business value score are what drives my overall value score. But if you want, you can just have planned benefits being the value driver, right? In which case, doing the prioritization based on value will essentially do a prioritization based on planned benefits. Or you can create a scenario where you say, my bias for this scenario is skewed towards financial benefits. So I want this to have a much higher weight in the calculation of the value of a project than the risk and business value.
Can we include UMT field in these drivers?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.
And this field included on project page and setting information about project, and this shows this UMT fields, yeah, in this driver.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't care about value, it's too confusing or whatever, you can do it by benefits, right? So in the definition of the plan, under the benefit settings, you selected an enterprise financial type and a financial dimension. So whatever benefits are included in that financial dimension for benefits, you can do your prioritization based on benefits. So have a scenario where you're actually looking at the projects that bring you the most revenue, let's say, right? And you recalculate, and again, after each one of the things that I'm showing you, theoretically, you would save a new scenario, right? But the idea being you want to be able to switch between prioritization criterias. Wait. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, obviously, there are other considerations. Damn it. I refresh the page. There are other considerations to be had. You can manually, so after you run the optimization, you might run it if midway through the year, management tells you need to reduce cost by 10%, right? So in that case, instead of having 30 million budget, you're going to have 27 million budget. So you want to see, okay, which project should we exclude, right? But there are going to be other things to consider. You might want to say, look, even the optimization algorithm excluded customer service feedback portal, we know that this needs to be included. It's very important for us, right? And I want to lock the optimization status. So whatever I prioritize on and whatever the budget cutoff would be, this particular project will always be included, right? So you see here, even though its value is lower. You might also lock the rank of a project. So if I lock this project on rank 1, and then I say, I actually want to pivot and do the prioritization based on benefits, even though the benefits of this project is much lower than other ones, it's going to stay on rank number 1. So when I run the optimization again, the first one that's going to be included is this one because it's rank number 1.
Rank, it's equal priority, yeah?
Exactly, based on whatever criteria you select here. So the constraint tolerance will give you maybe excluded and maybe included. This is basically only helpful for you to say, if I have $27 million, I might be able to get 10% more, right? I might be able to go to $30 million if the projects that I can include are gonna, in fact, be very, I don't know, very helpful or very, very good in terms of returns. So that's gonna tell me what are the maybe included and maybe excluded. So for $30 million, 10% would be $3 million. So these are the 3 projects that would fit into a $3 million cost. And these are excluded, but would amount to roughly the same amount. So you could focus just on these to swap them, right? Say, I want to include this one and it's $1.3 million. But in order to offset that particular inclusion, I'm gonna exclude these 2, right? And I'm gonna be $89,000 over budget. So very high level, this is what you're, why we included this capability. And obviously it's a very powerful capability because once you have these inclusions and you go to the roadmap, you're gonna see that the ones that were excluded are excluded from the roadmap as well, right? So they're not accounted for in the resource views or the cost views anymore. And you can start to be a much easier exercise for you to actually sequence the projects, right? So you know that your $27 million across 3 years, all the projects that are in the roadmap, you can do them within that 30 million cost constraint. But the question is, when do you do them? And the primary constraint for that is usually availability, resource availability. If you have enough available resources to do these projects. So if you find, Jessica is over allocated, you can accelerate this project so she's no longer over allocated. That's just one example. Yeah, so that's roughly all I wanted to share with you